This Big 12 tournament could be anyone's tournament, really. That's how competitive the Big 12's been this year in basketball. It's been a crazy year. You've had one guy who looked like he was going to easily walk away with the award, the MVP, and then he collapsed in conference play, or the second half of conference play. You had one team that swept Kansas, and Kansas hasn't been swept in forever, and it was Oklahoma State, who's the 9 seed now. You have Iowa State, who's the worst team at 13 and 17 overall, and they're not even that bad. I mean, it's anyone's tournament, so you just really don't know what could happen here. So I'm just going to start talking about how I feel about what's going to happen. I feel like there's going to be a lot of upsets, so let's just get right into the details. First, we got the play-in games. The first one, Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State. 8-9 seed matchup. Oklahoma State's the 8. Wait, who's the 8? Who's the 9? Oklahoma State's the 8. Oklahoma's the 9. So I messed that up earlier. Oklahoma State's actually the 8 seed. This game, it could go either way. Trae Young could go off and score 40 and Oklahoma wins, or Oklahoma State could shut down Trae Young and win by 20. So, as I've said about the Big 12, it's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. What I think is going to happen, and I think Oklahoma State, I got a little handmade bracket here, a little cheap bracket. I know it's horribly made. Just go with it. Got Oklahoma State advancing to play Kansas for the third time after they swept Kansas. So that would be a definitely interesting matchup. In the Texas-Iowa State game, Texas swept Iowa State this year. Won in Ames for the first time since 2010, and then at home they won pretty handily. And then they played, if they win tonight, they would play Texas Tech, and they beat Texas Tech at home, and they lost in overtime on a buzzer beater in Lubbock. So the situations are Oklahoma's on the bubble, Oklahoma State's on the bubble, Texas is on the bubble, Iowa State's out. The only way Iowa State makes the tournament is if they win the Big 12 tournament. I mean the big NCAA tournament. That's the only way they make it. Texas wants to make it. If they beat Iowa State, they could lock one of those play-in games or making it to the tournament by itself. If they want to lock and not have a play-in game, one of those cheap play-in game things, then they have to be Iowa State and Tech if they want to lock just a spot in the tournament and not a play-in game. Oklahoma, they lock a spot if they advance. Oklahoma State, they lock if they beat Oklahoma, and then if they beat Kansas again, I think that'll get them a spot in the tournament. So tough for all 4 of these teams to make the tournament, obviously, just because of the Big 12 and how competitive it is. So that's what we got for the play-in games, and then 2 teams eliminated. We get down to 8, and that's where the fun starts. So the games we got for the final 8 of the Big 12 tournament out of 10 teams. So it's a big deal to make the final. No, I'm kidding. You got TCU and Kansas State playing each other for that. That's going to be a good game, probably. Just because Kansas State, they've kind of been hot recently. They're, 21-10. They've had a good season. They should make the tournament. TCU, they've had an up and down season. Just doing so good non-conference, then conference hit, and they started off 1-4. They started to slowly build back up. Obviously got to the, 4 or 5 seed in the conference, so that's pretty good for what they were. At one point, they were last in the conference. So that should be a good game. It's in Kansas. You got to remember this tournament's in Kansas. So Kansas State will probably have a little bit of a home crowd advantage. Kansas State, they've just played better recently. I like them. I like K-State in this game to advance. So K-State. S-T-E-A-K. Got it. Kansas OSU. It's hard to pick against Kansas, but Oklahoma State swept them. This is a tough one because you got the Big 12 Player of the Year for Kansas, Devontae Graham. Then you got Oklahoma State, who swept Kansas. I think Kansas will go into that game thinking revenge, the first time they've been swept since whatever, even though none of those people have been there except for Bill Self. So I think Kansas, the players will feel a little emotion and be like, we want revenge. We want to win this game. And I think Kansas moves on to play their rival in the semifinal. Texas Tech. This could turn out being a very good game if it does happen. Texas Tech, they've had a great season. They were leading most of the year, and then Keenan Evans got hurt and went downhill. They lost 4 straight. Kansas beat them, took the Big 12 away from them. They got 14 straight years of Big 12 championships, regular season. Kansas, that is. Texas Tech, they got Keenan Evans back. They got a little bit of a boost of energy after that TCU win. They only won by 4, but still a win's a win for Texas Tech right now. They've been struggling. Texas, they came off that big win against West Virginia. If they beat Iowa State, they will have a lot of confidence in the team and the players and everything, really. And just the way the last 2 games have gone, Texas beat Texas Tech the first time in Austin by almost 10 points. Then when they went to Lubbock, Texas was leading. They actually overcame a deficit, came back, were up by 6, and then Matt Coleman missed 3 free throws. They kind of choked. They were just thinking about Trae Young. Started choking. I'm just kidding. Yeah. That's awkward. Anyways, they were thinking about who knows what. They were thinking about that time the Warriors had a 3-1 lead and then blew it. And they kind of gave that game away. They lost on a buzzer beater. So that sucks for them. Texas is definitely going to be thinking about that. They play Tech again. I think they got a shot. And I'm going to give them a solid upset. Call me biased. You probably will. You 56. Now it's 56. It went from 55 to 56 people. Are probably going to call me biased and say I'm a Texas fan all the way and all that stuff. But, I just gave you some detail why. I mean, they've basically looked better both times they played them. You got to remember Texas might not have Mo Bamba. I forgot to mention that. That could be an issue. They should still do well against Iowa State without him. But the Tech game, they're going to need him definitely. Last, Baylor, West Virginia. That's going to be a very... I don't know. You got Defensive Player of the Year for West Virginia, Javon Carter. You got Baylor, who's had a pretty good stretch. They beat Kansas. They swept Texas. That sucked. They beat Oklahoma by a lot of points. It's been a crazy year for that Baylor Bear. Tough game to choose. Baylor, they are like on the bubble for the tournament. West Virginia, I think I'm going to go with Baylor. Baylor's just had a better team right now. They look better, so I'm going to go with Baylor for that. Yeah, so Final Four, not the real Final Four, but for the Big 12 Final Four. So that's what we got it narrowed down to, and that's what's about to be described in detail in this, So just going to start it. So for the last 2 or final semifinals of the Big 12 championship tournament, whatever you want to call it, got Kansas, Kansas State, Texas, and Baylor. So K-State, Kansas. K-State played really good the first time they played. They only lost them by 2. They played a really good game. Second time, not as good. It was kind of an ugly game. I'll look up that score while I move on to the next game. Texas, Baylor. Baylor swept Texas. First time in Waco. They pulled away in the second half and pretty much just closed the door. Second time, Baylor won on a putback dunk in overtime. That was very frustrating as a Texas fan to lose on a putback dunk. I don't think I need to say much more on that. Kansas State. That's what I'm looking at. If I could ever just give me a second. Second time they played, it was in Manhattan, and Kansas won by 14 points. I can't count. Congratulations, I can't count. First time they won by 1 point. Sorry, Kansas State, I didn't give you your credit and that was in in Lawrence. So K-State obviously has shown they have the capability to beat Kansas, and Kansas is going to be tired at this point, I think. They're just going to be like, we got a tournament. We got the NCAA tournament. They're fighting for a 1 seed. K-State's fighting for just better seeding overall. Going to call another upset. It's a Big 12. It's full of upset Big 12. Going to put K-State in the final. K-State. S-T-E-A-K. And then for the Texas Baylor, Texas, they're kind of inconsistent at times. I feel like that's going to strike them. Baylor's defense is going to end up being big. And I think Baylor's going to win that one. So it's going to be the weirdest, most unpredicted championship. That's why I'm predicting it, because why not? K-State and Baylor for the Big 12 championship. I mean, last year was Iowa State and West Virginia. No one saw that coming. So, I mean, why not this one? So, just going to talk about the championship, Big 12 championship, or what I think it's going to be. It's probably not. Big 12 is so crazy. Something here is going to be wrong. If it's all right, like if everything's right here, I'll be super happy. So, in the crazy Big 12 tournament, that's going to be very chaotic and upset-filled. This is just my opinion, obviously. Who cares about my opinion? I got K-State and Baylor in the championship. Just utter chaos. Utter chaos. Mind blown. K-State and Baylor. Let's see how they did in their games. I forget. They played Saturday, March 3rd. Kansas State won in Manhattan, 77-67. In Waco, let's see what happened in Waco. Kansas State won by 7. So Kansas State, they've won first two games that they played. They will probably be favored if they play Baylor. Baylor will probably be looking for revenge. Kansas State's going to be looking for a Big 12 championship. Same with Baylor. Thanks, Joe Buck. I feel like Kansas State's a better team. I feel like because Baylor, if they make it this far, they lock their spot in the tournament. Let's face it. Kansas State, I think, is better than Baylor. K-State. K-State over Baylor. I have ugly handwriting, and this bracket is ugly, but here you go. Like the ugliest written bracket of all time, and it's for a conference. Just look how ugly it is. I'm just kidding. Just go with it. That's what I got for my predictions. Obviously, Big 12 chaos. Anything could happen. Man, it starts tonight. First game. Big 12 championships. The play-in games. Let me check. I'm pretty sure. No, go back. Iowa State and Texas play at 8. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play at 6 for the play-in games. So, it's going to get crazy starting tonight at 6.